Okay. So, I think the question of why is always important. And if you've had a reason to maybe apply for a fellowship or whatever the opportunity might be, they're going to ask you why. Why does this matter to you? Even if you're designing an advocacy campaign or whatever the case might be, right? People would always ask you why. So before people ask you why, it is important that you're asking yourself, why does this matter? Because when you know why something is important to you, it defines or redefines how seriously you take it. It also defines your approach to working on that particular thing. So, why do these skills that I have talked about earlier, pitching, presentation, public speaking, why do they matter? The first that I have here is 85% of career success is driven by soft skills. While some of you were sharing your reflections earlier, I heard you talk about soft skills. Unfortunately, I did not join the session yesterday, so I apologize if I may be repeating some of the things your facilitator said yesterday. But I think this is also important, because when you talk about repetitions can help retention. And perhaps the more people talk about it, the more you see the need to improve on the skills. So one of the reasons that I have here is why you should take the skills seriously. And I'm very particular about public speaking, because if you do public speaking well, you would want to learn how to pitch. You would also want to learn how to make effective presentations. And according to a study by Carnegie Institute, 85% of career success is driven by soft skills. So when we say soft skills, soft skills, there's a difference between soft skills and technical skills. The technical skills are those things you learned in school. I studied English language in LASU, and I know that we did a lot of Aristotle, we did linguistic plasticity, we did, all of this plenty jargon that we throw here and there. We did model tongue. And of course, I learned how a child would naturally speak the model tongue, which is the language spoken in the immediate environment and not necessarily the mother's tongue. So the mother's with the apostrophe and S is the language that the mother of the child speaks. But the mother tongue is the language spoken within the immediate environment of the child. So the language that the child would naturally speak first is the mother tongue and not the mother's tongue, because they listen, they tend to interact more in the environment that they would even be with their mothers, right? So, I learned all of those things. They're great. I learned different theories, and those are like technical skills, right? If you ask me about grammar, I can tell you, oh, this is a noun, this is a verb, blah, blah, blah. Those are really great. But are they enough for career success? No. According to the Carnegie Institute, 85% of career success is driven by soft skills. So when we say soft skills, I believe the facilitator yesterday already elaborated on soft skills. But really, just very briefly, you talk about communication skills, you talk about public speaking, you talk about negotiation, you talk about design thinking and all of those. You could classify them as part of soft skills. So when you go into an organization, for example, they're not just asking you, okay, tell me, you did grammar. Is this grammatical? Sometimes they may ask you, but that is not always going to be the case. Right, they're looking at your soft skills in terms of, for example, your interpersonal relationship. I could remember when I newly joined the private sector. By the way, I worked in the bank as a communications officer for about 4 years. But before working there as a staff, I used to intern there. So when I went there for my internship before NYSC, I recall that, it took me time to really learn even email communication. And because sometimes you think you know it all until you get there and you start listening to people, right? One of the things that amazed me when I newly joined the bank at that time, by the way, being a communications officer in the bank meant that, I was responsible for social media, a little bit of digital media and what have you, not necessarily the typical banking that you guys know, which is you go to the branch, you have interfaces with customers and staff. I didn't really need to do a lot. In fact, I didn't do a lot. I didn't do that at all. So for me, it was sitting in the office, doing strategy, trying to define, the brand and trying to shape messaging, working with vendors and whatever. So basically, that was what I did. But, when I newly joined the bank, I was very amazed that a colleague would want to send an email, for instance. You're sending an email to someone that is just opposite you, and you're still telling this person you have seen them multiple times already in the day, but you're sending an email and you have to do, for example, dear Chioma, trust this meet you well, or trust your day is going well. I'd like to inform you, and then you state all of those. And I would ask myself, oh my goodness, why do you have to keep saying trust your day is going well? And if you're sending multiple emails in that day, you literally have to repeat the same thing. Trust your day is going well. And for me, I was like, why? But these are some of the non-technical skills that you would need to learn in the career place. Some people take it very personal. And another thing that, I also realized was that even though in a lot of organizations, they would tell you, oh, you have to call people by their first name. You need to also understand the place of emotional intelligence. And like a former colleague who was a senior colleague would tell me, it would say to me, Rafiat, there's also the place of cultural or native intelligence. I am a Yoruba girl, for example, and I know that in my culture, there are certain people that I cannot I cannot address them with their first name. It would amount to disrespect. So I would not say, for instance, because I am in an organization that is situated in Nigeria, that operate with Nigerian laws. I would not say because I am in that organization and, I would want to send an email and then I would say, dear me, for example. I would not do that. Except, but of course, I know that I'm in because some organizations are very, very strict with that. Address your colleagues by your first name. In that case, by all means, go first name. But when I know that there is some flexibility, and because I am a Yoruba girl and I know that certain things are not encouraged in my culture, I'm not going to say dear me. So these are some of the soft skills, so to speak, the non-technical skills that I learned in the bank. And of course, I am still learning, but some of these things will really help facilitate your career success. Because when it comes right down to it, people are not just judging how competent you are. They're not saying, oh my goodness, Rafiat is amazing at our work. They're also looking at your character. And that is why even in most universities, before you're awarded the certificate, they will say in knowledge and in deed, or in knowledge and in character or something. So you need to learn that there are certain unspoken rules in the organization, in the workplace, that can facilitate your success. So that when you are not in the room, I mean, in the room where the decisions are being taken, people will remember you and they will call your name and say, oh, Rafiat, she's very good. In fact, she's the best in after jollof rice. I think she deserves this position or she deserves this promotion. Let's give it to her. So that is very key. Soft skills matter and you have to take them very seriously. The second point that I have is influence, leadership, and clarity. Why do they matter? It is not what you know, it is how you communicate what you know. Right? You cannot say, for example, I know that this trend is important to us as an organization. How do you tell people? I currently work in the development sector and I've had the privilege to design a number of campaigns. And I recall that when I wanted to design a particular campaign, I said, you know what? Please let's call this campaign Corruption Free Niger. The program manager initially pushed against it. She was like, as the organization that we are, we've got to be neutral. We can't, speak against the government. We can't call out certain things, blah, blah, blah. And I just said to the program manager to say, I understand where you're coming from. But in this case, for this particular campaign, it is important to call it exactly what it is. If you want it to be impactful, we want young people to join this campaign. We want them to tell us what they're doing to ensure a corruption free Nigeria. At the end of the day, I was able to explain in a way that makes sense. And we carry on with that campaign. Of course, using the hashtag corruption free Nigeria. So, was I able to influence? Absolutely. Was I clear? Yes. In terms of leadership, I've also shown leadership position in different ways. For example, I was the pioneer volunteer head of communications and PR for the European Union Youth Sounding Board in Nigeria. And if you've ever built something from the scratch, you would know how difficult and how challenging it can be to build. And, particularly when you're with young people like yourself. And again, there's going to be conflicts, people not understanding what you're doing, and they're thinking you're doing it because you've got an ulterior motive. But, I worked directly with amazing people. They saw the genuineness in what I was trying to do. They knew that I was only trying to build something sustainable. I was trying to build a legacy that we would all be proud of. So I was able to explain to these people and to some other people as well, because the truth is not everybody will be your friend. Not everybody will buy your ideas. And that's why we're all human beings. We've got different backgrounds. And we're going to have conflicting ideas, which is absolutely fine. It's a democracy anyways. But the important thing is if you have people that you're directly responsible for, it is critical for these people to understand your why. And you're only able to talk about your why if you've got soft skills. So the last point that I have here is first impressions and workplace perception. I remember when, by the way, I currently work with the United Nations. Um, and when I say the United Nations, because the United Nations has different agencies. So it's not just one, it's one entity, like an umbrella, and then with different branches. So when I joined the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, as a communications officer, I was working for a particular project, and I recall meeting with the country representative at the time. And, before I met with this man, I had done my research. I had looked at the platforms, the social media platforms of UNODC in Nigeria. I have done like a very short and quick survey asking people, oh, do you know about this agency? What do you think can be done differently? Primarily I had done an audit for them, say a social media audit and a digital media audit. I knew what the challenges, what the problems were, and I had solutions in mind. So before I met with this man, I had prepared my mind. And even though some colleagues were like, if you're going to meet this man, you'll have to, be really prepared because, if you're not very prepared, you might not be able to create a very good impression. And you know what they say about first impression lasts longer. It is not cliche. It is still as relevant as old. Because the moment people have the first interaction with you and they already form their perception about you, it's going to be very difficult for you to change that. So I met with this man. I explained to him. I told him, this is what I'm going to be doing for the office. This is what I can do, blah, blah, blah. And everything, it was super good. And when I introduced certain things that were not really his vibe. Let me speak like the Gen Zs, because the man was he was so much on Twitter and on Instagram. And I knew that if we wanted to also expand our reach, it was important for us to diversify, not just focus on a particular platform, go elsewhere. So I was pushing some things on Instagram, as well as Twitter and blah, blah, blah. So even though at the initial stage, they were not like his vibe, he was just patiently watching to see, okay, what will be the outcome and what have you. And glory to God, those things were not just mere activities, right? They were able to bring results. Colleagues from other countries would tell him whenever they had interactions that, oh, I like what is happening on your Instagram page. I like how you're humanizing communication. And this is one of the things I talk about almost every time, that in the development space, there's a need to humanize communication. People should not think that there is a wall, between them and the organization. They have to see themselves in the organization. And, it continued that way. And trust me, I had a good time working with this man. He's no longer the country representative of UNODC in Nigeria. He's been posted elsewhere. But I remember that when he was leaving, he looked at me and said, Rafiat, you are a standard for a communications officer. So how was I able to do this? How was I able to create not just a first impression, but, impressions that lasted up until when I left? Soft skill, but I would not really say soft skills alone. I also involved, a bit of technical skills. So you have to learn how to blend soft skills and technical skills together. I don't know why I have spent so much time on this, but I just thought it was important, because if you do not know your why, you're just going to be working and working in vain, no results to show for it. And at the end of the day, you become frustrated. Next slide. Thank you. So what is a pitch and tips for effective pitching? I don't want to start preaching to the choir, because I want to believe that you've heard about pitching before, and you also probably also know, the tips for effective pitching. But based on what I have here, a pitch is a brief, persuasive speech to spark interest in what you or your idea offers. You know that when you have to pitch to somebody, it has to be really quick, because there's no time. So because pitches mostly happen when you are maybe in a networking session, or you're in an elevator with someone, it's very swift. So you've got to be really fast. But in that short period that you have, you want to ensure that you're able. Oh, thank you, Marianne. So you want to be able to ensure that you're still able to spark curiosity. You want people to say, you know what, take my card and reach out to me, or call me. I'd like to take this conversation forward. So that is what you should be able to do with your pitch. It is brief, but it is persuasive. The word persuasive is very important. You're not just convincing people. Oh, sorry, you're not just convincing people, you're literally begging them, but in a strategic way. You're not bringing when you bring your beggar's bowl and say, please give me money. No, but you're doing it in a very strategic way. And so you need to ensure that you learn all of this. So we have different types of pitches. There is the elevator pitch, the idea pitch, and then the product pitch. Of course, I know the elevator pitch is very popular. You've heard it multiple times. So, for example, just give you an example. In case you meet Dangote in an elevator pitch, what would you say to Dangote? And you start, okay, I'm going to tell Dangote I'm the founder of this, blah, 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 blah. We really do not have time, honestly. And I'm not able to, spend so much time on all of these topics. But I'm just going to give you the basics. For example, for elevator pitch, for the most part, you want to spark interest about yourself and your company, or your company, not even and your company, because it could be this or that. So an example could be, hi, oh, good morning, sir. My name is Rafiat. I run Rafiat Company Limited, and this is what we do. Do you understand? So this is me. This is what I do, right? And this is what I do does. I don't know if that makes sense. And then you talk about solutions. So very briefly, good afternoon, sir. My name is Rafiat Atonda. I run Rafiat Atonda Business Hub, where we provide AI solutions to young startups. We have a solution that help businesses try. We have a solution that help businesses track their daily expenses, and we currently work with 30 clients across Nigeria, and we're still growing. Basically, this is not a perfect example, basically, but this is just to show you that, I'm able to tell you who am I, I'm able to tell you what I do, and I'm able to tell you the problem that what I do is solving, right? And I'm also able to show you that we've got people currently working with us. That is trust, because you've got to build trust, right? But it is important that in the heart of what you're doing in your elevator pitch, you're able to infuse the problem, you're able to talk about the solution, and you're able to spark curiosity. So you may not have a CTA. So a CTA is a call to action. And for example, if you see digital ads, particularly from businesses in the private sector, they would always tell you, learn more. You understand? For example, win 5 million naira in our millionaire promo. That is the copy. And then you see a CTA. The CTA is the call to action. Learn more. Because the banner itself that you have seen is not sufficient to give you all the information that you need. So the learn more is the CTA. When you click on it, it takes you to a page where you see what the offer or what the promo is about. So you need to also learn how to do that in your elevator pitch, but maybe not necessarily have a CTA, depending on what it is. In fact, in most cases, it is better that the person you're talking to is the one asking, oh, I'd like to learn more. So in that case, it means that you've done an excellent job pitching about yourself and your company. I think I should take water, but I don't have water here right now. But the next one is the idea pitch. So for this one, it's literally about a new concept or solution. And, for this one, you most likely will be painting a picture. Imagine a world. Who remembers that bank PHBR? A world where cars will run on water. So that could form an idea pitch, because it currently doesn't happen. And if cars run on water, it means that they would have to rely less on fuel. And if they rely less on fuel, what does that mean to the climate? It means that there will be less burning of fuel, there will be less emissions in the air, and you're literally providing clean energy. So there's a problem. We're talking climate change, and you're providing a solution. So you need to think about it when you talk about idea pitches. And then, of course, there is the product pitch. So for this one, you're not pitching yourself per se, you're pitching a particular product from your organization. For example, *329# is a code that can help you get your banking needs from your fingertips. Then talk about the number of persons that have been able to use it, how you've been able to reduce the queues and the banking all, amongst other things. So these are like, the types of pitches. And again, my explanation is not very exhaustive because we really do not have the time. But please, if you're interested in learning more, by all means, expand your knowledge on this things. So what are the key elements of pitching? I already talked about problem. There's a problem, there's a solution, there are benefits, and then there is call to action. So call to action, in short, can also be called CTA. So in case you're hearing an advertising professional or a marketing guru talking, and then they're saying, oh, what's a CTA? What's a CTA? Don't feel left out, because you now know that CTA is call to action, right? So the key elements again are problem, solution, benefits, and call to action. So what are the tips for effective pitching? You need to know your audience and tailor your message accordingly. Sometimes when some of you go for networking events, you already planned your networking, you've already planned your script, so to say, in your head, and you just meet that person and you just want to start talking, it's not gonna work. It's not an effective way to network. It's not an effective way to pitch. So let's say, for example, you are going for an event. Why don't you Google the person's coming way ahead? Oh my goodness, they've taken the lights. I'm so sorry. Give me a moment. Give me a moment, please. Let me put on. I'm not sure this is very effective, but at least I can manage. Hopefully, they'll bring you back very shortly. I'm so sorry, but hey, this is Nigeria. Okay, so as I was saying, you go for an event and you just want to start talking. So how about you Google the person's coming? Just know a bit about all of them. If there's a particular person you're interested in, you could actually research about that person, and then you think about how you want to approach them. And a session. Okay. So and a session, the session that the person is going to be a part of, you have to ensure that you listen, so that when you meet with that person, the first thing you're saying is not, "Oh, my name is Rafiat. I run." Show that you listened to them while they were speaking. Oh, for example, you could say, "Oh, fantastic presentation, ma'am. Oh, thank God, it's back." So you could say that, "Oh, fantastic presentation, ma'am. It was," and then, just say a sentence or two that stood out for you. "I really enjoyed how you dwelled so much on the impact of climate change." In fact, as an individual myself, or as a social entrepreneur, I've got a solution that does A, B, C, and D, and I see that your organization is interested in things like this. It will be really, that way you've started a conversation. So the next thing that I have is for you to start strong. It could be a hook or a story, but this is not cast in stone. Again, depending on where the pitch is happening. If the pitch is happening in an elevator, of course, you've not had the opportunity to hear from the other person. So there's no need going, "Oh, that was a fantastic." No, 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 no. There's no need to do that. You could just start with a story, a hook, or some of the examples I gave some of the examples that I gave earlier. So focus on clarity and benefit. This is very important. Please you don't have to be grandiloquent. And I mean by that, I mean speaking what we say in Nigeria, big grammar. Sir, I believe that the modus operandi of this organization is to, who the hell are you talking to? They're not gonna listen to you because you're not communicating. The important thing for you is to be able to say things that people can relate to. For example, yesterday was World Biodiversity Day. I made a video on UNODC's page. Maybe you can check it out later. On Instagram, it is at UNODC Nigeria. And I used everyday items, essential things. I use it to talk about biodiversity. When people hear biodiversity, they feel it doesn't concern them. But biodiversity is about the food that you eat. I'm talking about the fish in your pepper soup, right? I'm talking about the oha soup, the egusi soup that you enjoy. You know, I'm talking about the goat meat, the ogunfe, and all of these beautiful things that you love to eat. Biodiversity impacts them. So if we have biodiversity loss, it means that you would also experience a similar loss in the food, in the things, the beautiful things of life that you enjoy. So think about it in that regard as well. You cannot be pitching and then you're speaking jargon. By the way, jargon does not mean nonsense like we think sometimes in Nigeria, but jargon means a register. For example, if you're talking about climate change, there are words associated with climate change. But again, you need to know your audience, because if you're speaking to For example, you're speaking to professors, you're speaking to academics, and you need to speak in a way they want to hear. Otherwise, they will not take you seriously. But if you're speaking to policymakers, for example, you don't assume that they know it all. You've got to break it down, bring it to the things that they enjoy. Imagine telling a policymaker that, sir, tomorrow you may not be able to enjoy pepper soup again because of so and so reason. So these things are very important when you're pitching as well. So keep it short and memorable. I already talked about this before. It doesn't have to be super long. If you're sharing a story, keep it very succinct. You know what we say about kissing it? Keep it short and simple. And the last one that I have is practice, practice, practice. Oh my God, you cannot take away the place of practicing. Even the greatest of the greatest of the greatest speakers, they still practice. In fact, you would see that for the most part, they have a teleprompter. But the fact that you have a teleprompter does not mean that you still should not practice. Your newscasters, for instance, they read from a teleprompter. There's a screen in front of them. But the fact that they have a screen in front of them does not mean that they don't have to practice. Because you could actually have a screen in front of you and still read rubbish. You would notice that there's a way they read. There's something called cadence, the rise and fall of their intonation. A newscaster would want to read to you now, and they would not say, the theories of international development. They will not just read it blandly and say theories of international development. You would hear something like the Nigerian president has now joined. They would read it in such an interesting way, and you would even forget that they are reading from a screen. So practice is very important. Imagine that you're going to be meeting Dangote tomorrow. Tell yourself, if I meet Dangote tomorrow, what will I say to him? Practice it. If I meet this person tomorrow, what will I say to them? Practice it. And before you know it, your time will come. And when it eventually comes, you will not fuck up, like we say in Nigeria. Next slide, please. So presentation skills 101. And this is very narrowed, so to speak. And I'm talking presentation skills in the workplace, because I imagine that, and this is not even just about my imagination. Oindamola already told me that we have a lot of students, graduates, and early professionals here. So whatever categories you fall into, you can use all of this. Because I recall that when I was in the university, we had to do presentations as well. And even though we did not take those things very seriously, because we did not really know better, you've got an opportunity now to rewrite your stories. Lecturers value these things, and if you give it to them, you get higher marks, right? And if you're also a graduate, you're reaching out to somebody, for example, you want to work with them, rather than sending a bland email, do a presentation, letting them know what you can do. Maybe you're offering to be their graphics designer. Don't just say, dear ma, I am a graphic designer. I've been designing for many years. Nobody cares. But imagine that you do a presentation and you share with them, what we call portfolio and all of that. They will see you as a serious person. They can easily relate to what you've done in the past, and they can make a decision whether to hire you or not. But for every presentation, it is important that you have a structure. What is your opening, your body, and your conclusion? And this is also very important for public speaking. How do you want to start? What is your body and how are you concluding? This is also equally important when you're asked to do impromptu speeches. I mean, you've not prepared for it before. But again, what we've said about practicing, right? You don't need to say, oh, I am going for this event tomorrow and I've got to start practicing. But remember that prior to that time, you've been practicing. So it's not news to you. So you've got to have like a opening. Somebody asks you, for example, oh, what do you think about President Buhari's administration so far? It's an impromptu speech. You've not prepared for it before. What do you want to say? Quickly think. You need an introduction, right? More like a sentence or two. Well, I think President Tinubu has been doing relatively well so far, judging by criticism from, both his supporters and people who do not necessarily support him. But personally, I think he's not been doing very well. And I have three reasons for saying that. That is your introduction. Then what are the three reasons? Quickly list them. One, economy. Two, employment. Three, poverty. And because you read the news, I mean, you're not going to be caught on fresh, right? You can say, oh, for economy, you can also see that things are very expensive. For two, we have a lot of graduates who still do not have jobs. And this is despite President Tinubu promising millions of jobs annually when he was being sworn in as president of Nigeria. And three, we've got poverty. A recent report by the World Bank says Nigeria is still one of the poorest countries in the world. So, judging by all of these points, I would not say that President Tinubu has done really well. Please don't quote me. This is just an example. Well, importantly, you've seen the introduction, you've seen the body, and you've seen the conclusion. And you don't need to speak for 5 minutes, for example, especially because it is an impromptu speech, right? So, but taking this to presentation, if you're making a presentation, what is your intro? So you've got to have a structure. How do I want to start, right? What is the body? What is the conclusion? I know you're going to have like a slide similar to what you can see now, but you're also going to have to speak to people, right? So how do I want to tell the story? Do I want to start with a who are my audiences? So these are very important. Use visuals wisely. You don't want a slide that is so bulky and people are not sure whether they should be listening to you or they should be reading your slide. It's just so boring and you don't want to do that. So, where possible, introduce visuals. You want to talk about, for example, the impact of climate change. You don't need to list all the academic. Oh, I'm not going to read it. I'm sorry. And I know that a lot of people will not read it as well. But imagine that you've got pictures of of dry lands, pictures of animals going into extinction, things that are effects of climate. Imagine that you've got that and you're putting it on your slide. When people see it, you know what they say about a picture speaks louder than 1,000 words. It is still very true. They will remember. And you got to learn how to engage your audience. Engaging your audience is also like a different topic on its own. Understand your audience and engage them accordingly. If you're speaking to children, hey, you cannot be speaking plenty English. You can't. Children like songs, right? So even if you don't know how to do it, you've got to learn how to sing their rhymes and say, this baby shark do. Sing it to them and say, my head, my shoulder, my skin. Sometimes when I have seen advocates go to communities and then they would sort of edit the popular rhymes and infuse their words just to ensure that the children are getting, for example, my head, my shoulders, my breast, my vagina, they all belong to me. That is a way of teaching children bodily autonomy, letting them know that nobody should have access to touching them. So you need to think about your audience and think about how you want to engage them. If you're speaking to professionals, you can't be asking them to sing. Well, it depends on the context, right? But the important thing for you is to know your audience and tailor your presentation accordingly. Some audience will not need you to put a lot of visuals. Don't do it. Just understand them and do that accordingly. So we have control your timing. Don't waste time. I want to believe I'm not rushing this, but again, because we have limited time, I'm just trying to cover as much ground as possible. Rehearse with feedback. It is very important. Have your friends, your family members, tell them you want to talk to them, say to them, get their feedback, improve on it, and things will get better. So utilizing narratives allows you to connect on an emotional level, making your presentation memorable, etc. Storytelling is very critical. Your story is, for the most part, it is unique to you. It is either your lived experience or the lived experiences of others. Whatever the case, people love to hear stories. So if you've got a story that is important to your presentation, why not share it? People may not remember all of the things you have said, but they will remember your story. I know that some of you today will remember later on that when I started, I struggled to tell the difference between lose and lost. Not because I was a dull student, but because stage fright, I was dumbfounded. And they corrected me. And all is well. Up till now, all is well. It is fine. So you also need to learn this. It is important. So visual heads like slides, charts, and videos, all of this as well. They can share the slides with you. You can read them. It is important. So for example, if you're talking to marketing professionals, they like numbers. They want to speak data with you. So you can't be putting a lot of English. They're not really interested. But by the time they see the pie chart, and then you tell them, oh, in the north, we made 4 billion last year. In this, we made this year. In this, so if we do this time, we can get this. So, for example, and another example could be maybe you did a marketing campaign, right? You could say to your superiors, and just say, oh, we put our banner in 3 different websites, right? For website A, we got 10,000 visits. For website B, we got 20,000 visits. And for website C, we got 50,000 visits. As a result of that, I'd like to propose that we put more marketing budgets behind website C because it helps us derive value compared to other platforms. They will understand. But you cannot just put English, the English they want to see, but it's more important that you represent this in visuals. Next slide. Okay, so public speaking tips. The first one that I have here, first of all, I want to believe that we all know what public speaking is about, right? You engaging a group of people, and it doesn't have to be like 1 million, 1,000, 100. As you can see here, I'm engaging about 3 persons. That is public speaking already. So you don't necessarily have to speak to a large crowd before you think you're doing public speaking, right? Provided it is more than 1, 2 persons, you're good to go. Otherwise, you'll just be doing like interpersonal communication. So public speaking is a very, very critical skill. You know, I want to believe that sometimes some people get the opportunities not because they are better than you. It was because they were able to sell themselves better than you. So don't say, "Oh, well, I graduated first class. Congratulations. You did amazingly well graduating with a first class." But if you're asked to talk about things, can you talk about them? And this is not even a case of you defending your first class degree. It's about you being able to explain. And I'm not even saying that you being able to speak with a fake accent, but you being able to communicate clearly, right? You've been able to say, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rafiat Atunda, and this is what I do. Can you do that? Some of you will do all the work. You do all the work. Spend, count sleepless nights. And then you now give it to somebody and say, please go and present. Ew! When the reward comes, do you think people will remember you? They're going to remember the person who made the presentations. So please stop doing yourself a disservice by being shy. And I also talk about the power of positivity. Stop domesticating negativity in your life. You are not shy. I am not shy. You say that to yourself. You have not only overcome shyness, there's a difference. I am shy is not the same thing as I have not been able to overcome shyness. Because by the time you keep telling yourself that I am shy, there is something inside of you that keeps reminding you that you're shy. And for that reason, you're not making deliberate effort to overcome that thing. But when you tell yourself that no, I have not been able to overcome this thing, you begin to consciously make effort to get better. So stop domesticating pain, stop domesticating negativities in your life. I'm sorry if I'm sounding spiritual right now, but it is important, particularly as you go into public speaking, because you're gonna goof multiple times. I remember the first, the when I just joined the bank, we would be in meetings and they would ask me to do summary and I'll start stammering. I'm just really grateful for the people I worked with, particularly my supervisor that she was a nurturer. And they would say, "Oh, Rafiat, please," but I was very naive. I didn't really know a lot. So I didn't really know like what I was supposed to do. And then somebody would just jump in and say, "No worries, I'll keep Rafiat up to speed." And over the time, I started learning, I started improving. In fact, oh my God, each time I talk about my career development, I would always talk about my former supervisor, Lola Ego. An amazing woman, an amazing woman. During teams meetings, Lola would not speak first, not for anything. Lola did not like there's this effect called the sunflower effect. The sunflower effect is basically, people wanting to say they want to go after what the boss has said. In many scenarios, the boss would want to speak first. And then because the boss has spoken, right? Every other person will say, okay, yes, what the boss said is right. But Lola was not that type of leader. Lola would say, no, 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 I want to hear from you guys first. Because she did not want the sunflower effect. And then we would all say, and Lola gave us the room to become. Whenever Lola made contributions, even though she was the boss, and she did not even like us referring to her as the boss, she said, no, we're colleagues. Even though she was the boss, Lola would still ask you, Rafi, what do you think? I would say, I like it. By the time I saw it, I like it. She said, but. So I would say, I like it, but I think we could, But I also did all of these things respectfully because you need to understand that when people give you access, you do not abuse it. Understand the boundaries. Don't say because your boss has given you the opportunity to contribute, you will be rude about it. There's always a place of acknowledging the fantastic work they have done or the fantastic presentation. I think that was a very fantastic presentation. But I really like that you touched on this, and this, that it would help us improve our performances across the different regions in Nigeria. However, going by the data we had in Q4 2023, I think we may want to, there's a way you communicate these things, and you can only do that with a very good public speaking skill. So it is important. Public
Yeah, please,
speaking,
can you
please.
just give me a few minutes? I want to get their opinion. So, we should have gone into question and answer right now, but I feel if we,
Oh,
I don't want to
I'm
feel now, but
sorry, I enjoy
I
talking
want
with
them to vote. So, if you want us to continue this session, so she can exhaustively do justice to all our slides, can you just um I'm not trying to see if I can even set up a poll right now, but maybe not. Can you just indicate by raising your hand? So let's see how many people want this session to really just indicate by raising your hand. Let's do that within 5 minutes. You want this session to go on? I want us to do justice to our slides, or you want us to stop 7:30 and we just end, whether we finished or we've not finished. We are good to go and we do the post assessment and everybody goes. So if raise your hand, Neil, raise your hand. I want to see if you're on this call, you want this session to go on. Raise your hand. We are counting, and we just have 3 minutes to do that. I want to see that. Raise your hands because it's really been an interesting session. So, and after a session, so if you wanted to go on, then you are still learning, that means we'll be closing later than 7:30, about maybe 7:50 or 8 or thereabout, because after the session you would ask her questions, and I'm sure many people would even have questions to ask you. So we'll just choose, and then we'll do the post assessment. So keep raising your hands. I'm counting. I'm counting. Okay, so let's go on. Yeah, Wafia, over to you. Yes. And so she herself has said she won't take long. So
Okay.
let's go on.
All
Yes.
right, thank you so much, everyone, for the votes. I'm so excited. It shows that there is value in this. So I'll try to run faster now. I just enjoy doing this. I'm so sorry. In fact, I've not changed my outfits from work. So the second point that I have here is for you to manage nervousness. Breathe, pause, and smile. If you notice, I've been doing this quite a lot, when you notice that you're not feeling the vibe. It's okay to just say hi everyone and then just give a broad smile and you're just really gonna be fine. And also try to work on your pitch. Don't be too high, like nah, no, you're gonna be screaming that way, but learn how to go up and then you calm down, just like I've been doing. Oh, so this is interesting, but I also think you will love it. That is how it should be. So you both body language, posture, gestures, eye contact. That is also very important. Communication is not just the words, it's also about how you move your body, looking at people, smiling, gesticulating, and doing all of that. So speak with energy and clarity. Oh my God, people can feel it. I'm sure you've seen a lot of energy from my end here because I know that this is a virtual session, and if I imagine I've been speaking and I'm like this, I'm sure by now everybody will say, "Please, it's okay, let's go." But because you've seen the way I've been, sort of moving my body, you could feel the energy in my voice, just like when you have a radio presenter, you can't see them, right? But you only connect with them because of the way they sound. So when you hear, "What's up, Lagos, Nigeria?" It's a beautiful evening. Hope you guys are having fun. I'm enjoying myself right here in the studio. You want to stay on that radio station. So you need to speak with energy. But please understand that the contexts are not the same. If you're in a room, if we're in a room, I'll most likely not be speaking this way because it feels at some point that I'm trying to speak loud so that you can all hear and feel the energy. But if you're in a room, especially if the number is limited, I would speak with a moderate voice or a moderate tone. So avoid filler words. I just did one now, but you because we're not the native speakers, even native speakers, you will still hear but you need to ensure that it is not a lot. And I think one of the ways to work on this is to ensure that you're not speaking too fast. You're not speaking too fast. So when there is a deep pause, people will notice. So take your time. You're not in a hurry. Your people are there to listen to you. You have to take charge of the room and try as much as possible to reduce your And a way for you to do this is by being a voracious learner. You read. Make sure that your vocabulary is rich enough so that when you're speaking, you don't have to start rambling and scrambling for words here and there. And before you know it, you're doing a lot of it irritates people when you do a lot of So leverage the power of the 3 hours. I call this the 3 hours. I coined them. The first one is research, rehearsals, and reflection. I've talked about the need for you to practice. So for me, the practicing is the rehearsals, right? The research, sometimes people think they are shy. They are not shy. It's because they don't know what to say, right? So you need to ensure that you're knowledgeable enough. Don't just limit yourself to what your department says. What is happening in the world? What is the US doing, for example, with China and the rest of the world? What is happening in Nigeria at this time? So that when people are talking, you're not looking like a dummy. You can make contributions. And those contributions do not need to happen only when you have prepared for them. And for me, the reflection is about understanding, for example, your audience, their culture. You're not going, for instance, to the Sultan of Sokoto and you're not covering your hair. If you're a female, it is not acceptable. You have to cover your hair. If you're going to an Oba in Yoruba land, you should ideally be prostrating or kneeling and saying Ka BSC. You need to learn all of those things. If you're going for a student union government, and then you're going to say, hello, everybody, they will not listen to you. But imagine you go there, you start all the greatest Nigeria students. They will. So you need to reflect. If you reflect, you will get all of these things. It is important. Research, rehearsals, and reflection. What I used to do, I still do it up till now, but I remember that at my early stage of learning to improve on my public speaking skills, I would stand in front of the mirror. When I watch films, especially those where English is spoken, I would pick a line or two. And then I would go stand in front of the mirror. I would repeat what that actor has said over and over, right? I did the same thing for newscasters. I remember the first time I read the news, when I served in Edo State. A man walked up to me and was like, who read the news? He gave me a handshake. It felt like a presidential handshake because the man said, I have never heard such brilliance in a while. And that was my first time reading the news without any form of formal training. But you know what I had done prior to that time? I had listened to the likes of Esther Omokpariola on TVC, Bukola Samuel Wemimo. You know how they would go on TV and say, hello and welcome. This is BBC News Nigeria. The headlines. That was it. And then I would go stand in front of the mirror. I would repeat the same thing. I would bring out my English textbook and start reading, linguistic plasticity is the blah, 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 blah. Our correspondent, Ajayi Olaoluwa, has the details. And then I would do that. So you need to practice. You need to do all of these things because when you speak differently, when you speak with confidence, you gain more respect. And you want that respect. Trust me. Next slide. So I need to run now. I'm sorry. All right, so we've talked about pitching, we've talked about presentation, we've talked about public speaking. Now let's bring it to workplace application, and of course, the common mistakes you need to avoid. I've touched on some of them prior to now, so I'm just going to be really fast now. Let's talk about team meeting and project presentations. Please, any ideas or any comments, don't always be the one who says no comments. Yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice. When it is time to get people promoted, your name is not going to feature. And I'm not saying say something and then say rubbish. You need to say something intelligent. And that is why you've got to pay attention. Now that it's the era of virtual meetings and what, some of you will join virtual calls and then you go do something else and say, well, whatever they are discussing is none of my business. Sis, bros, it is your business. You have to make it your business. So you need to learn how to communicate on Teams meeting. And of course, when there is, the need for somebody to volunteer for presentation, please do so. Don't say, it's not my work, it's not my work. Make it your work, make it your headache. It will help you in the long run. Let me quickly share this. When I was working in the bank, I just started and I walked up to my supervisor and I said to her, I said, ma, please, I don't think I am doing a lot. I don't think so. She looked at me and she smiled. She was like, Rafiat, you actually have a lot, but maybe you don't. I say, ma, it doesn't feel like that. Tell me, who goes to their oga, their boss, and says, please, ma, I want to give me more work. Who does that? Well, Rafi, I did that. I went to the madam and said, please give me more work. And when the work came, she did give me that work. I did a lot. In fact, there were days, if you're familiar with Lagos, I used to walk on the island, CMS, and my house was at Mazamaza Festac. There were days that I got, in fact, I left the office 8 p.m. because I really just wanted to do an excellent job, right? I got additional work. I did all of those. And today they are helping me because as a communications officer, my focus primarily was on social media campaigns and what have you. But because I said I needed more work and I got the more work, I learned direct marketing, which is SMS and email marketing. I did digital marketing, did website management, did influencer marketing, etc. So today when I'm speaking, I am speaking as a well-grounded professional who knows what she is saying. And one of the things I have learned from then up until now is never ever get comfortable being redundant. Don't say, well, they are doing the work, let them continue. No, when it is time to fire somebody, your name will be number one. When it is time for people to get promoted, your name will be number last because you're not contributing a lot of value. But I'm not saying that in the bid to do this, you should overwhelm yourself. Know your limits and work accordingly. The slide is off, but I still have it here. So I'm just going to quickly do like a rundown of the rest of the points so that we can call it a day. It's been a long time. So another thing that I have here is also on job interviews and appraisals. I have client pitches and networking events, and I also have advocacy and leadership communication. I know that we've touched on this a little bit. Don't wait for people to bring the work to you. Sometimes go to them, particularly if you're in my field, communication, and because a lot of times you see that people don't really take communication seriously, especially in the development sector. So you can always say to them, oh, how can I support you better? How can I make your work easier? I can now help to give more visibility to the work that you're doing. For example, in UNODC, there's an initiative that we have for young people. It is Be Wild for Nature. It is to galvanize youth action for wildlife conservation in Nigeria. It was World Wildlife Day. It was approaching last year, and I just thought to myself, oh, maybe we could do something with young people. It would be fantastic. I put the concept together with some other persons, presented it to the program manager, and she really enjoyed it. She liked it, and she gave us the go ahead to do it. Today, it is one of the youth initiatives being referenced in Nigeria and even at the global office in Vienna. So imagine that I had waited. If I had waited, the program manager had other things that she was doing. She probably wouldn't have thought about it. But I just thought to myself, rather than wait for this to happen, right? I'm going to make it happen. So you need to also have that mindset as well. And when you do all of this, it is more work for you. I need to be very honest. But it is beneficial at the end of the day because you're learning more, you're deepening relationship, and you're making yourself much more relevant in the organization. So when you're thinking about workplace application, avoid overloading slides with text. I already talked about this before. Reading verbatim from slides and shying away from presentation. Sometimes when some people make presentation, you just see that the presentation has a lot of text, and then you're reading that it becomes boring. People are not feeling. There is no soul in your presentation. So it is important that you had a soul to it. Just few words explain. You would see that a lot of my explanations, they're like personal stories or stories that I've heard somewhere, things like that. Many of the things already here, you probably know them, but you don't know my stories. But you know them now because I have told you. And because I
sai ya ajiye shi faɗan talaka ne ya sani tabbas ya rike wannan ko ɗan jirgin ko layin wani imam ba mai na fiti waye waye mai na boye wani buwa hiti daga Kano har Borno har Borno.
I think the network is bad.
Funny enough, it seems she's still presenting, but we can't hear her from her end here. It is
call our attention to the fact that nobody is hearing her.
Can anyone reach out to Indamola, please?
Wọ́n kàn ṣèyàn di bẹ́ntì.
Okay, hello everyone. So, I'm so sorry. I think the network has really been a lot because I myself have been trying. I don't know what's happening now. That it's so Sophia, you can unmute yourself and continue, and I'll continue.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't know the last thing people heard, but because time is fast spent, I would just round off with my final takeaways, and if there are questions, I'm happy to take them. So my final takeaways are: effective communication is your career currency. Confidence grows with knowledge and preparation. Every speaking opportunity is a chance to improve and sell yourself. Grab it. The current role that I have with the United Nations came as a result of an opportunity that I seized. I saw it, I seized it, and I sold myself to the boss. The rest, they say, is history. Never get comfortable being redundant. I have explained this multiple times. It would help you as you move along in your career journey. Advocates. At this point, I'd like to say thank you so much for your apt attention, for the beautiful comments. I've been seeing them. And I hope that beyond the talk that we've had today, you're going to start practicing on how you can improve on these soft skills that we've talked about. And hopefully in the future, I can see how this session sparked something in you and made you a much better person. Thank you, and I will be rooting for you. Thank you so much, Damola, for the opportunity. Over now.
Thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you so much. It's really been insightful and it's wonderful. Even the network to feel she at the end. Now I'm just going to allow just 5 people to speak, and while you are speaking, the assessment form will be shared in the comments so that as the question and answer is going on, you can also use that opportunity to share, to ask her questions, and she's going to answer. Let me see. You can also put your questions in the chat. Put your comments in the chat. I'm seeing a lot already. So just 5 people. Okay, let's start with Onye Kachi Baruko. So I'll allow you to unmute yourself, please. Unmute and speak.
Okay. Thank you
Let's
so
see more
much.
hands up, please.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I first of all want to appreciate Rafia Tatunda for this session. Can we hear me, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So yes, I would first of all appreciate her for the session. It was really insightful and enlightening. I like the fact that she broke down, a number of concepts and made it very relatable. So thank you much for that. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I want to ask concerning the idea pitching. Yes, can you shed more light on, because you mentioned some types of pitching, the idea pitching. Can you shed more light on that? Thank you so much. And then a little on call to action. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Please, I didn't get your name. I'm so sorry. Could you tell me your name?
I think her name is Onye Kachi.
Onyekachi. All right. Thank you so much, Onyekachi. First, for the beautiful comments. I feel flattered. Thank you so much. So going to your question on the idea pitch, I would honestly say that do, more research, because no matter the explanation I give, particularly because we do not have a lot of time as well, it's not going to be sufficient. But for the idea pitch, you're basically introducing a new concept or a solution, for the most part. And the example I gave earlier was the bank PHB ad. I don't know if you know that ad, but if you put it on Google, bank PHB ad on cars running on water, you would see that ad, and it can help you better understand what the idea pitch is about. But basically, you're trying to introduce a new concept or a solution. So for example, imagine a world, or imagine a farm where farmers can use AI to track their yield. Do you understand? That is an idea pitch. You're introducing something that is relatively new. I know that we like to say that there's nothing new, in the sun, which is, to an extent, it is true. But if it is new to a people, it is new. So if there's a particular community where they do not have, for example, access to water, you could say that Omilende, a community, that translates to water sent me here, has been suffering from lack of water access for over 30 years now. And this is what you're trying to do for that particular community. So you can look at it from a lot of angles. It is not a one size fits all. But when you talk about idea pitch, think about it from the perspective of, for the most part, social entrepreneurship, like an impact driven initiative. But even when you talk about impact, you still need money to support it. You need people to rally around you. So, but think about it more from that perspective. You're not really making profit off it. It's more about impacting people's lives and making either the environment or the community, making it more habitable and more profitable for the people who are there. So please think about it from that regard, but I would also encourage you to do more research on it. And then the CTA that I talked about, which is the call to action, is basically, I haven't explained what your concept is about. What do you want? Think about it from the perspective of what do you want people to do? What is the action that you want them to do? You probably would have seen ads on social media. Let's not even talk about from the private sector. You probably have seen from NGOs, from civil societies, and what have you. And then after everything, you will see donate now. Donate now there is a city, is a call to action. They are telling you that I haven't done everything. This is what we want you to do. Donate. And sometimes when you see some posts on social media, right, you would see, please like, share, and comment. Because sometimes you can read or you can watch all of the things that they put out there, but you will not remember to like, share, and comment. So those are also CTAs, and I hope this clarifies it better. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It does. Nana Absat, you can unmute. Mary Judith, I think I unmute. Emmanuel Inamoko, you can unmute. So please unmute yourself and speak.
Okay. Hello,
Good
right
evening.
here.
I think Nana should go. Then after Nana, Mary Judith. Nana, we can't hear you if you are speaking.
Much. I really enjoyed it. Can you hear me, please?
You are breaking.
Okay, let me change my position, please. Just a minute. How about now? Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'll just go straight to the question, but I want to commend Miss Rafiat. I'm so delighted to have you on this session. I really enjoy your speech. So my question is the point you highlighted in the final takeaway, because I actually like it and I'm going to dwell more on it. Confidence grows with knowledge and preparation. So please, I just want you to suggest tools that can help enhance our vocabulary to build this confidence. Because yes, I believe having the right vocabulary, the right thing to say next, actually help to ease the work better. So please, can you suggest what and what we should employ in building our vocabulary and also to enhance our confidence better? Thank you.
Nana, thank you so much for the comment and for the question. In terms of tools and resources that you can reference to build your confidence and vocabulary, please allow me do a compilation and share with Onyedamola much later. But right on top of my head, I would say YouTube is a good resource. If you just type in the keywords, you would see tons and tons of videos that can help you do this. And I would also say that you should read, be an avid reader. It's very important. Read interesting stuff depending on the genre of literature that you find very comfortable reading. But when you read, don't just read for the fun of it. If you come across the words that you're not familiar with, go to your dictionary, try to check the meaning of the word. But beyond checking the meaning of the word, try to learn the pronunciation. And when you learn the pronunciation, make a deliberate effort to pronounce it the way it has been pronounced. It is very important. I need to turn on my video at this point because I remember that when I started learning how to speak right, a lot of persons made fun of me. In fact, some persons say, oh, she's forming, she's this, she's that. But what I've come to realize is if you always listen to people's opposition, you might lose your position. And sometimes people project their insecurities on you. They want to be you so bad. And because they cannot be you and they're not even making efforts to be a better version of themselves, they ridicule you, they belittle you, they want you to feel small. So don't let anybody drag you to their smallness. You're made for big things. So try as much as possible to watch, after watching, learn the pronunciation, be deliberate about how you pronounce your words. It is very important. For example, I remember when I just started learning to pronounce words the right way, I was told that, for example, mouth is not mouth. You don't pronounce it as mouth because that is not a pronunciation. It is mouth. And it is mouth. month. I'm sorry, this is not a diction class, but this question is very important, and that's why I turned on my video. month is month, not month, not month. It is not T. It is So it is month. So you will never, regardless of who it is, you will never hear me say 1 month. I passed that level. I'm going to say 1 month, and you will understand that this is what I'm trying to say. If you're not comfortable with it, I'm sorry, learn the right pronunciation. So please watch videos. You would also listen to people that you like. I like the way Michelle Obama speaks. I like the way Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I like the way she speaks. Tokema Kinwa, I like the way she speaks. Prior to, for a very long time, I would speak and I would, frown kind of, because I am an emotional speaker and I've had to do debate over emotional stuff. So when you see me, there was a debate I did on Chibok girls. And you cannot talk about Chibok girls and be smiling and all of that. So I have done debate like that in the past. But after a few times watching Tokemakiwa, I know some of you, when you watch Tokemakiwa, you're probably watching to banter and to drag that. And me, I don't do all of that. I'm looking at the very great side of people that I can learn from. And I realized that whenever Toke, was speaking, for the most, especially was saying something serious, she wears a smile on her face. There's a way she contours her face. And she just be like, I found it very beautiful and I started learning it. See, mastery is a doing. So you have to it's not something you do once. You do it over and over and over again, and you become a master at that thing. So please do that. It is very important. Also, for the sunflower effect, I would also say maybe go online. I did a post on it on Instagram, like I think last year, or I can't really remember. But basically it is, let's say, for example, Oyindamola is the boss here, right? Fatima is the Fatima reports to Oyindamola. Do you understand? So a situation whereby Oyindamola and Fatima, they are in a meeting, and then Oyindamola goes first and says, oh, this is what I think we can do for this campaign, blah, 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 blah. And then Fatima comes to say, oh, yes, I agree. That you did that the first time, Fatima. Another time, the boss says, oh, this is very good. And the next thing you say, I agree. Every time you keep agreeing, not because you really want to agree, you're agreeing because Oyindamola is the boss and you don't want to go against the boss. So that explains the sunflower effect. You don't want that to happen to you because you will not really grow. Your opinion is important, but you need to also understand the context, because sometimes you have some very toxic bosses, bosses that would not want you to shine. So if you're with people like that, I'm sorry, you just have to manage them so they don't see you as a threat, even though that shouldn't be the case in the first place. But just understand your context and work accordingly. But importantly, when you are in an organization, try not to be that person who is laid back. Try not to be that person whose opinion is always, I have no opinion. Try to have an opinion. I hope this better clarifies. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. The next person should please unmute their mic. Emmanuel, if you are speaking, please speak.
Yeah, good evening, ma. Good evening, everyone. Thank
Good
you,
evening.
our wonderful speaker. You've really impacted us. Yes.
Let
So,
Emmanuel just go first. You speak later.
okay, quick one. I just want to say, as a communication expert, is there any way you can guide us? Because I applied for a communication position with the United Nations, and then I don't know why they flagged me off. So I want to know, is there any better way I can build up my CV as a communication expert, being that you've done a humanitarian job before? So I want you to coach or give me a candid advice on how to build my CV to be a better communication expert. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you for, of course, your comment as well and the question. I need to put a disclaimer here. Please, I am not speaking on behalf of the United Nations. I am speaking as an individual, Rafiat Atunda. So these are my personal experiences and perhaps the experiences of people that I know that I'm sharing, and those also reflect the ones that I have shared earlier on. So I am in no capacity speaking on behalf of the United Nations. But if I'm to advise you based on your question, I would say that it is important to tailor your CV accordingly. The United Nations is a highly competitive place to get in. You can imagine, because of the name and the brand itself. So it's quite competitive. And it is important for you that you've got the required skills that is, necessary for that particular job role. So maybe, I'm just saying maybe, and again, I'm also not an HR expert, so I'm just saying this based on what I know. Maybe there are HR experts here who can guide you better, but I think it is important for you that you tailor your CV accordingly. One of the mistakes that I have seen that job seekers make over and over is that they have a one size fits all CV. You use the same CV for a communications job, for example, in maybe youth development organization, and then you use the same thing for another organization. No, it's not always like that. They have specific ask. So you need to look at the job description, look at the skills that they are asking for, and make sure to tailor your CV accordingly. So there's a possibility that your CV is just one that sort of covers all the different job applications you've been doing. So please try to tailor your CV accordingly. There's also a possibility that maybe you do not meet the criteria. Maybe they are looking for somebody with these years of experience and you do not have it, and you just want to say, oh, let me try. So you don't have to let me try if you do not meet the criteria, but sometimes you could also, because you might be lucky. But I think it is very important that you tailor your CV accordingly. Make sure that your CV has the details, has the skills and the requirements that they are looking for.
Okay, thank you so much, Ofa. We just take 2 more questions and then we take our pictures and we close. So, maybe Judith, if you were raising your hand, if you can speak, please speak.
Yes. Can you
yes.
hear me? Good evening.
Yes, please just straight to the point. Yeah.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Okay, I just want to appreciate the speaker for this session. I think I have a question. My question is, how do you handle difficult question from your audience? Like, and what best way to answer a difficult question from your audience after your speech? What strategy can people with speech impediment? There are some people with speech impediment, but they have the knowledge, they have the skill, but they have speech impediment. What strategy do they use to increase their confidence in public speaking? Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking for the strategies to engage your audience. Am I correct? Oida, am I correct?
Yes, how to deal with difficult situations from the audience. Okay. Mary Judith, that's what you asked. Okay, yeah, she said yes.
Yes. I mean, someone that has speech impediment. Speech impediment. How can she be confident in public speaking, and how can you answer difficult questions from your audience that you don't know? Yes.
For somebody with a speech impediment, I honestly would advise that you see a therapist, see a professional to help you through it. Maybe for example, you stammer and all of that. I can only give a very nuanced and very basic response to this, which is not going to be super helpful. Do you get? So let's say, for example, somebody who stammers, I would say maybe, you don't have to rush your words, because sometimes you're trying to rush and it sort of affects the way you communicate, right? But again, I am not an expert in this field, I would really just advise that you please, if you're the person or you know the person, encourage them to see a professional, see a therapist, a speech therapist, and they can help you, with your speech impediments. And then the second one is on how to um, work on difficult situation, maybe with your audience. I think again, this one is there's no straightforward answer because it depends on your audience and it depends on what you mean by difficult. So is it that they're not engaging with you, or they don't tend to understand what you're saying? And there are multiple dimensions to this, because the problem may not necessarily be them. It could also answer difficult questions. Okay, from the audience, how do you answer difficult questions? Okay. So I get it now. And I've spoken to this before. The truth is, you are not an island, and people don't expect you to know everything. So if you think a question is difficult and you honestly do not have an answer to it, see, the honorable thing for you to do is to declare and say, this is a very important question, and I must say that it is quite difficult as well. And very frankly, I do not have sufficient information at this time. It's okay. And if, for example, you're on a panel, right? It's okay to also say, and while this is a very interesting question, and I would be very happy to provide answers to them, unfortunately, and please, when you say it, you see the way I'm saying it now, you don't have to say with a frown on your face. You just smile. And while it's an interesting question, and I honestly would love to provide a response to this, I I unfortunately do not have sufficient information at this time. I'll be happy to read further, to do more research, and hopefully we can connect and I can share my findings with you much later. And if any of the panelists could also help in responding to this, I think this will be fantastic. Chikena, and you're good. You're going to be well respected. You don't have to answer everything, especially when it's a very difficult question. Just learn the tricks and the strategies. I've given you one just now. Wear a smile, acknowledge the question, acknowledge the fact that you don't really know it, but you don't need to say it like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't. The way I said it now, did it sound like I'm an unintelligent person? No, I am intelligent, right? It does not water down my intelligence in any way at all. So just say that, acknowledge it, and then promise. The first is acknowledge, right? Promise, and then try to see if you can connect with the person so that you can share your feedback or your response with them. And if it's a panel session, please feel free to pass it on to the next person.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Rufiat. Now we move to the last question and we take our picture. Solomon, you are the last person to ask question here, and with you this may end. So Solomon, can you unmute yourself and speak? Solomon. Okay, Solomon, can you unmute yourself and speak? And if you are speaking, we can't hear you. Well, maybe Solomon is not on the call because his mic is actually on and he's not speaking. So that ends our session for today. Thank you so much, Rufiat. It's really been amazing having you here, and it's really been brilliant. I mean, so brilliant. So thank you so much. The slides and the recording will be shared much later. Thank you so much. So before we our trainers, we have a tradition where we take a picture together. So everyone, this is the time to put on your camera so we can take the picture together. Please put on your camera. Are we ready? Okay. So put on your camera, everyone, please. 1, 2, 3, go. I'm taking the pictures already. You put on your camera. We have about 3 slides to go. You put on your camera. Just one more to go. Put on your camera still, please. Thank you so much, everyone. And that ends it. Thanks.
Sorry, Anita. What? I'm so sorry. One last thing. I just want to say thank you again. Please connect with me on social media. Oyinda will share the slides with you, and you would see my social media handles there. But on Instagram, Rafiat _ Atunda. On X, Rafiat Atunda. On LinkedIn, Rafiat Atunda. And on Facebook, Atunda Rafiat Mujisola. I will be very delighted and very honored to read all your beautiful comments online. So please feel free to share your reflections online and tag me, and I'll be very happy to engage with them. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the evening and have a beautiful weekend ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. I mean, it's I think 8 now and we are closing this session. So thank you for joining. Thank you for being a part. We go again tomorrow, and with that we end the first week of Skilled for Now 2.0 virtual bootcamp. And our speaker tomorrow is just as fantastic as our speaker today. I'll be sharing the social media profiles to every for every trainer that's spoken. I've shared some slides with you. I'll share this with you. I'll also be sharing the links to their social media profile so you can connect with them and ask them, connect with them, and whatever you want them to know about their session, like you said, you can also tag them. So thank you so much, everyone, and good night. Enjoy your night rest. Thank you.